Happy Friday, everybody. Today we're going to be going over slope-intercept form of lines, something that many people confuse with the slope equation, but this is going to be our formula for lines when we're graphing them, when we're writing them, calculating them, stuff like that. Hopefully you've got your paper in front of you, and we're going to start taking some notes. So first of all, as you see in the box, slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus p. This is our equation of a line. M, as we remember from yesterday, b, something new. I guess we have these lines over here. So m is our slope, our rise over run, our change in y over change in x. Let's write down our slope formula again from yesterday, so that when we have to start using it, it's up here at the top of our paper. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I'm also going to write our delta y, aka our change in y, over our delta x, our change in x, because we're going to use that for our tables down below, this idea of change. Our b, maybe you remember from before, is our location of our y-intercept. So I want you to think about the name of the formula really quick. Slope-intercept form. Why is it named slope-intercept form? Because if a line is written in slope-intercept form, you know the slope and you know the y-intercept. If you don't know what the y-intercept is, it is the point where, the line or a graph crosses, and that didn't work out well, crosses the y-axis. Another thing to know about the y-intercept, if it crosses the y-axis, its x-coordinate will always be 0. So you'll know the y-intercept if it's 0 comma some number. I'm going to write b just because we label b as our y-intercept in our slope-intercept form. Excuse me. So moving on. Our slope-intercept form, that is what we're going to be doing today, writing our different representations of lines in slope-intercept form. Looking at this first table, it wants us to find the equation of a line. To find the equation of a line, we need our two things. We need our y-intercept and we need our slope. Once we have those two things, we're going to be able to fill in our y equals something x plus something down here at the bottom. So let's figure out how to do this with the table. Looking at the table, I'm asking you to find b first, our y-intercept. Now, how do we find this from a table and not a picture? I want you to go back up here where we were talking about b, and I want you to look at that point, 0 comma b. If the x-coordinate is 0, you know what the y-intercept is. So looking at our table, I'm highlighting it right here. There's where our x-coordinate is 0. Our y-coordinate is negative 10. That is what tells us our y-intercept, negative 10. Now how do we find slope? Did a little bit of this yesterday. Find how x changes, find how y changes. So what's the change from negative 2 to negative 1? We add 1. What's the change from negative 1 to 0? We add 1. From 0 to 1, we add 1. Over here on the y side. From negative 18 to negative 14, we're adding 4. From negative 14 to negative 10, we're adding 4. From negative 10 to negative 6, we're adding 4. So how do we calculate slope? The change in y over the change in x. So that would be 4 over 1, which simplifies to 4. So our slope-intercept form for this line down here on this line at the bottom, y equals slope times x, 4x, plus our y-intercept, but since our y-intercept is negative, I'm going to write it as a minus 10. So take a moment, think this over, see if it makes sense. If it doesn't, tap someone on the shoulder next to you, ask them about it. What I'd like for you to do is to pause the video really quick and try out number 2. Write down what you think the answer is, then come back, push play. I'll have my answer when you are ready. So take a moment, please try this on your own. Alright, through the magic of time travel, I have my part of my answer already up on your screen. As you can see, I put a box in the table. Hopefully you were thinking the y-intercept should be 5. Hopefully. When you're looking at your m, your change in y, how does y change? That's 2. Positive 2. Over our change in x, which is changing 3 every time. So we take these two values, y equals slope, 2/3, times x, plus our y-intercept 5, and hopefully that is the equation you found. Okay. Moving on to number 3. Something tricky about number 3. Maybe when you look at it, you're tempted to put a box around this one, but I'm going to tell you not to do that. If you were thinking that, I want you to give it a moment's thought. Why are we not supposed to look there for our y-intercept? That's still messy. This is not where the x is equal to 0. In fact, our table doesn't have a place where x is equal to 0. To find our y-intercept at this point, I would just say to extend the table. We'll have different ways to do this in the future, but right now, I'm just going to figure out on the table where 0 would be. So if you look going up, looks like we're getting bigger and bigger. -5, -4, -3, -2. The next number would be -1. Then looking at our pattern over here, 2, 0, -2, -4, looks like our pattern would be -6 right there. Still not 0, so we got to go one more. There's our 0 coordinate for x. Going our pattern on our y's, it looks like our y-intercept should be -8. So if it's not on the table, make it on the table. Hopefully that's not too bad. Our change in y every time looks to be like we're subtracting 2, adding 2. Just kidding. And it looks like over here on our x side we're actually subtracting 1 every time. So our slope is going to be 2 over -1, which is -2. So writing our equation, that would be y equals -2x minus 8. Okay, breath pause. First glimpse of finding linear equations here. Look those over. Before we move on to the next one, give yourself a second. Think about those. Make sure they make sense. Okay, I'm ready to start the graphs. When you're looking at graphs to find the equation of a line, we're going to do the same thing. We need to identify slope. We need to identify y-intercept. Looking at a graph, many times finding the y-intercept isn't too bad. And these problems that we're going to be getting started with here at the beginning shouldn't be too bad to do. This point right here, where it crosses the y-axis, that is the y-intercept. So I'm just going to count what value it's at. So starting at the origin, I'm going to count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the point 0, 7. So our y-intercept, our b value, is 7. Now we need to find our slope. We did this a little bit yesterday. I'm going to start with a point on the left, and I'm going to draw a triangle to a point on the right. Then we're going to count our rise and our run. Our rise is we're going to start at a point and go down 1, 2, 3. That's -3. We're going to count over to the right. That's 1. So our slope is -3 over 1, which is -3. Taking our two values, y equals -3x plus 7. Take a moment. Think about that one. If it makes sense, move on to the graph next to it. I'm going to pause, put my answer up so you can check it. You should pause, try the next one. See you in a second. Alright, made some markings. First of all, we have a point on the y-axis at 0, -1, so our b value is -1. Our slope m, I drew my triangle starting on the left, going up or down first, and then drawing over. Looks like it's rise +2 over run +6, which simplifies to 1/3, giving us our equation y equals 1/3 x minus 1. That is finding the equation of a line in slope-intercept form from a graph. Alright, we got a couple more ways. We're flipping over to the back side. A couple more problems. Then you'll have plenty of time to work on your homework, and also make sure you get the homework from last night done as well. So, other ways to find equations of lines come from just being given information. The back page, you're going to see that we are being given both slope and a y-intercept. This is the easiest case. If you're given, like in number 1, an m and a b, you don't have to do anything besides fill in where the numbers go appropriately. Now, you might still mess up. It's not as easy as just nothing, but it's almost that. Y equals our slope times x plus our b value, so our equation for that line would be y equals 7x plus 5. Looking at the next one, we're given a coordinate, but we're given a coordinate where the x coordinate is 0. So our b value is just whatever the y coordinate is, in this case, -7. If our m is -2 and our b is -7, then our equation is y equals -2x minus 7. Alright, take 15 seconds. Try this last one. I'm going to sit and wait. You got this. Alright, that was about 15 seconds. So, our slope is 1/4. That goes in front of x. This 0, 6. That means our b value is 6. So we're going to add 6. There's our equation for that one. Alright, let's move on to a little bit harder. Given a point and a y-intercept, I want you to notice this one's a y-intercept because the x equals 0, so b equals the y-coordinate, in this case 3. We've got part of it. So how do we do this? We need the y-intercept and we need the slope. So the first thing that I want you to do is to calculate slope. Then plug in m and b. Sorry, that doesn't really look like an and. M and b. So, how do we calculate slope? Think about our slope formula. y2, 3, minus y1, -2, over 0 minus 4. That simplifies to 5 over -4. Make sure you're able to do that math. And now we have our slope, we have our y-intercept. We're ready to go. Y equals -5/4 x plus 3. Alright, pause for a moment. Think about that one. Try the next one, and then we got our last problem. So I'm going to pause, give some answer, and then you'll do the same. See you in a second. Alright, the answer is up. Oh, I guess I scrolled a little too far. There's the work to calculate the slope. See our y-intercept, our answer, -6x plus 7. Now, how do we calculate the equation of a line when you're just given 2 points, not a y-intercept? This is the hardest one. So, we got 3 things we have to do. And you're going to have to start the next video, because I'm going to run out of time here. So, we're going to put a pause on this. You got to jump to the next video, and we'll finish this problem up.